Right, thank you very much for joining. This morning's session is really an introduction to iDocuments. It's a suite of modules that can provide a lot of benefits for both customers and new prospects alike. And unlike a lot of software products out there, has a very quick payback. So depending on what you're looking for the solution to do, and today is mainly concentrating on reducing your AP invoice processing costs and increasing its efficiency. But I think Duncan and Andrew are also looking to present a number of other modules, as well as a general overview to give you an idea of what the art of the possible is. So, as I say, I'm Alan Hughes from Ascari. We're joined by Duncan and Andrew from Synantics, who have created iDocuments. And without further ado, I will transfer control to Andrew and we'll get on with the presentation.
Thanks, Alan. Morning, everybody. My name's Duncan Wyeth. As Alan said, I'm with a company called Synantics, the authors of iDocuments. And today is really all about showing you how iDocuments and some of the more modern technology, and we've all heard people talking about AI and artificial intelligence and machine learning and all these great things that make us think computers are a lot more than just a processor and the ability to add up and take away. But it's all about showing you how that kind of technology can be used to really enhance your business and streamline your business processes. iDocuments has been in the market now for best part of 10 years. It's used very widely. We have about 500 customers, companies running the product, and probably close to about 20,000 users. And the great advantage with iDocuments is that it integrates seamlessly with SAP Business One, both in terms of making sure we're only using one set of master data, and also posting transactions back to SAP through the DI API to make sure that any transaction we post into SAP has been properly validated by SAP before it hits your system. So there's no chance of having a transaction go in that you couldn't post manually. What we're going to focus on today is really two key areas based on our new OCR engine. iDocuments has had an OCR functionality now for probably 4 or 5 years. And with that OCR functionality, we've really just done header level matching. So if you've had a purchase order in SAP Business One, processed a GRN for it, we could match an AP invoice to that using header level data. All very powerful, used by lots and lots of companies, saves a lot of time and makes life a lot easier. But recently we've moved into the world of line level matching, and this opens up an entirely new world for us, where we can use machine learning techniques and some AI capability, and we can receive an invoice now that you've never seen from a supplier, so a brand new supplier, brand new invoice. And even if that's, say, a service invoice, we can auto code it based on history. So we'll look at the description and then we'll match an invoice based on the description on the invoice to the description on your GL codes in SAP Business One. And that really enhances the whole process and enables us to process invoices in a much higher volume without people actually touching them. So we're going to go through 3 scenarios initially on purchasing. We're going to look at matching at header level through purchase invoice against a purchase order GRPO in SAP Business One. We're then going to look at matching a stock items invoice where there's no purchase order, so how we extract the item codes and post that. And then we'll show you the service invoice as well. We'll then show you how we've taken that technology and flipped it over to do sales orders. So some of our customers have said, look, we're receiving sales orders via email from our customers. They typically come in as PDF documents or Excel documents, etc. We want to automate the processing of those. And when we've done that, if time permits, we'll have a very quick look at what we can do in some other areas of the business, with particularly looking at things like expenses. So Andrew's sharing his screen. Andrew and I come, as you probably heard earlier, as a duet. Andrew's extremely good on keyboards. I'm not. I stick to the vocals. And the first thing you can see here is the iDocuments login screen. It's a browser-based solution. That means you can access it from within your network, or you can access it from anywhere you like, provided you've set up the security accordingly, and your network will allow access via traffic from outside of your network, or perhaps using a VPN. Please feel free to throw questions at us as we go. As Alan said, you're all off mute. There's only a few people attending, so it's quite easy for you to throw questions at us and we'll fill them as we go. But to start with, if Andrew clicks on the sign in and signs into iDocuments, that signing could be done through Windows single sign-on. We can use two-factor authentication, but Andrew's logged in here as admin, and you can see from the menu bar across the top all the different functions we've got in iDocuments that sit on top of SAP. So there's purchasing, expenses, sales, some intercompany stuff, and we've got some really useful functionality around HR, timekeeping, timesheets, and some projects functions as well. We also have a couple of portals, so your customers can access the system via a portal, place orders. Those orders can flow into SAP, and you can use it to extend purchasing, so you can publish catalogs and people within the business can purchase from those catalogs. And again, we'll touch at those later. If Andrew clicks on the purchasing menu, you'll see in here that we've got a whole bunch of functions in purchasing that range from adding a purchase order, purchase quotation, purchase requisition. We can add items, we can add suppliers. All of these functions in iDocuments can go through a very rigorous workflow to ensure that the transactions are properly approved in iDocuments before they go to SAP, and we enhance the functions within iDocuments over and above what you can do in SAP. So everything in iDocuments is based around a group. I'll just touch on this to begin with, that the group will determine where something goes to for approval, but the group can also restrict the GL accounts and the items that a user can buy or indeed sell on the sales front. So you can have more control over what people can do with your data. And one of the big issues with Business One is that when you raise a purchase order, raising that purchase order could result in somebody processing a purchase order against a balance sheet account that they should never process an order against, simply because the user don't know what to pick as an account. So in this instance, Andrew, if you can open up SAP so that we can have a look at the purchase order in SAP. This is a purchase order against CTI computers in SAP Business One. It was raised in Business One, and I believe Andrew has done a GRN, or you're actually going to add that one, that's fine. So if you add that one in now, and we can GRN that as well, so copy to GRN. And for those of you that are paying attention, the GRN is 576, and the purchase order is, what was the purchase order number, Andrew? 700. Nice and easy. So there's a synchronization engine that sits between iDocuments and SAP. Andrew's going to run that synchronization engine, and it will take these two transactions from SAP Business One and post them to the iDocuments database so that they're visible in iDocuments. Once that's done, if we view all purchase orders, you'll see that that purchase order has now come through to iDocuments. It's the first line there, and you'll see the originator says system because it came direct from SAP Business One. So the supplier's sent the goods in. The supplier's then going to follow that up with an invoice, and Andrew's got an invoice that he's created in Microsoft Word. He saved it as a PDF document. And if Andrew sends that PDF, along with a couple of others here that we're going to refer to in a second, but you'll see these come through against 3 separate suppliers on one email. So the email comes into a dedicated email address. And when that email arrives on our SAP server, we have another process that's running, which is the OCR engine, which will scan the mailbox. It will remove each email from that mailbox and remove the PDF documents from those emails. The first thing it does is secure the PDF document in an encrypted format. So we read it, we then secure it in an encrypted format so that we meet HMRC standards. You can't go in, open that PDF document up in Word, edit it, save it as a PDF document and replace what was there. So you can't fraudulently affect your purchase invoices. And once it's read those documents, it will pass them into iDocuments, and you'll see Andrew now has an option here for purchase invoice scans, and there's 3 pending. And if he opens that up, what you'll see is the first one there, CTI computers, purchase order number. It's actually picked up an earlier purchase order. It's picked up 696. We've got purchase order GRN 572. And if Andrew opens that one up, this has matched the invoice to an earlier purchase order that Andrew had raised in SAP. And on the right-hand side, you get a representation of the PDF document. So you can see it's got the order number 696, it's got the line details, And at the bottom of the screen, you'll see it's picked up all of those lines from the PO GRN, matched it perfectly. At the top of the screen in the header, we've got the gross amount and any difference. There is no difference on this one. And to process that to SAP, all the user needs to do is hit the submit button at the top of the screen. So if Andrew submits that document, that's now got a full three-way match. It's a perfect match to the purchase order and the GRN, so we don't need any further approval. That has a three-way match. It's been approved, and the next time the sync engine runs, it will post to SAP Business One. So before we go back to those, we'll just run through the next scenario. The next invoice that Andrew's received here is for Smiths. This is an item-based order or an item-based invoice, but there's no purchase order. And you could see there was no purchase order on the previous screen because I hadn't populated the purchase order and the GRN number. But we can see again the document that's come through. And if Andrew scrolls down to the bottom, what you'll see here is that the system has picked up the item description, OfficeJet printer and OfficeJet, and despite the fact that the item number shown on the purchase invoice is different to the item number in SAP Business One, it's matched the description to the item codes in SAP, and it's presenting those lines to the user fully coded. We've selected the item code, we've got the price, we've got the VAT, everything's correct. And again, at this point, all Andrew needs to do is submit that invoice. Now, he could obviously edit it. He could change the item code if it had picked the wrong item code for him. He's got full control over editing that document, but he can submit that. And because that document doesn't have a purchase order, it will be submitted into a workflow for approval by another user. And in a minute, we'll log out, log back into the system, and we'll show you how that transaction can be approved. The final example here is an invoice that's been received from a service company. So ABC Consulting, an aptly named organisation, provide consulting services to us. That invoice has come in. It has the description of strategic consulting, but obviously there is never going to be a GL code on these items, on these invoices. So the system has read it. It's identified ABC as a service provider. It does that on past history from the supplier. It's looked at the rows, it's identified the description, and it said, right, this contains the word consulting services. I have a GL account code called consultancy fees, so I'm going to pick that GL account code for consultancy fees. And it's populated the line with the consultancy fees GL code. You'll also notice on the right-hand side, it's populated the department, the region, and the division. These are the dimensions from SAP Business One. So we inherit any of the dimensions you're using in Business One. And it's populated those based on some default values. We can apply rules to the population of dimensions based on the GL code that it selects. So it could pick a GL code and then automatically determine dimensions based on that GL code. Or you could give the user the ability to edit those GL codes at the point of processing the transaction. And finally, before Andrew leaves this screen, just above the blue mark that says header fields, you'll notice there's some radar controls here to mark a transaction as a credit note, as a VAT rounding transaction, a pro forma, a prepayment, or a down payment. The prepayment one is worth touching on. If those of you involved in the processing of invoices and the finance option, my background is finance, and prepayments were always a bugbear for me, that I'd post my transactions to prepayment. At the end of the month, I'd get a list of prepayment invoices, work out what needed to be posted to where, work out how long I needed to do the prepaid over, keep an extensive Excel spreadsheet and manage the whole thing manually. And prepaids became pretty much a day a month at month end to work out what's got to go where. With iDocuments, you simply tick the box to say it's a prepayment. You tell it the number of periods that you're prepaying over, and every time the sync engine runs, it will look to see if it needs to post a prepayment journal. So if we were to say that this one was over a 3-month period, it would post £333.33 each month, in the first month, the second month, and the third month, over the period that you specify. So you give it the date of the first journal and away it goes. Lots of people are finding a lot of benefit from just having the prepaids taken care of. The original posting will go to the prepaids account in the system settings. So Andrew can submit this one. And from there, if we log out as admin, and Andrew can log back in as the approver with the, I think the username is L2, but Andrew logs in as the approver. So the first thing you'll notice with this user is they have a completely different set of menus. So they don't have all of the functions. Those functions are controlled through licensing, but they're also controlled by the individual user access. So a purchasing user could just have access to raising a purchase order, processing a purchase invoice. They could have access to the whole purchasing menu, and the same with any of the iDocuments menus. But you'll see here that this user has a number of pending tasks, including approved purchase order and approved purchase invoice. If Andrew clicks on approved purchase invoice, we'll see a list of invoices that need approval. And the first one on there is today's ABC Consulting transaction. So we can open that up and the user gets to see the whole transaction. It's a different interface. So from here, the user could click on an option to view the PDF document, but they can see the consultancy fees. They can see the history of the document. So under the history tab, it will tell you when the document was created and when it was submitted. You can see any comments that have been added by the user when they process the transaction, and any related documents, etc. From here, they can approve. And it's worth noting that this approval can also be done on a mobile app. So have you got your mobile app connected, Andrew? There we go, Andrew's iPhone. So from here, Andrew can log into the mobile app, uses a passcode every time they open up the app. And there's an option in here for approvals. And you can see there's a purchase invoice there to approve. And Andrew can view it. And he can select the document itself. And he's got an option there to either reject or approve. If he rejects it, it will go back to the originator with a comment from Andrew to say this is why he's rejected it, and the user can then edit the document appropriately and resubmit. If he approves it, it will go through the standard approval process and go on into the system to post to SAP. So he can approve via his mobile app. We've approved that one. Did you approve the ABC one as well, Andrew? So we can go back.
24. We've now got 23. I did it in the mobile. Yeah.
Okay. Did you approve the ABC one too?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do that one as well.
So that's the ABC Consulting one. So we've had an invoice come in, matched automatically with a three-way match to a purchase order GRPO. That's posted to SAP. We've got a purchase order come in for items without a purchase order that's automatically determined the item codes from SAP and sent off for approval. And we've had a service invoice arrive with no purchase order, automatically determined the GL account. And again, that's been sent for approval and it can post to SAP. So if Andrew now runs the synchronization engine.
Yep. Can I just ask?
Yes, feel free.
So,
can you introduce yourself before you ask?
So when I could see you had the PDF attachments in the iDocuments, will that also save a copy into the attachments linked to the document in SAP?
Yes, it will. When Andrew goes into SAP and opens those documents up, we're just running the sync engine again. But if we open up the AP Invoice in SAP Business One, you see we've got the document attachment path. So there's three places we can put it. In the attachment path there, we can move the document attachment path into the header, and it can appear in a user-defined field as well. But when you click on it, you get the PDF document in SAP.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
So, there it is, isn't it? That's the word we're all looking for. Brilliant. Think of an audit. In my day, when the auditor came in, they said, can we have a sample of 200 invoices to give to a 16-year-old work experience bod that we're charging you a fortune for? And they're going to go away with green and red pens and check that those transactions have posted correctly. You don't do it anymore. You just say there's access to SAP, randomly select whatever invoices you want to look at. The document is attached. It's very, very simple. One of our clients in the health sector processes about 4,000 invoices a month. They are seeing significant gains in their audit department because they have an internal audit as well as external audit, and they regularly vet transactions. So not only have they seen gains in terms of the reduction in time and the reduction in the amount of time it takes to pay their suppliers, but they're also seeing gains on internal processes as well. So has that sync engine run, Andrew?
Yep, should have.
If we can take the sales or the purchase order and just do the relationship map. So the other thing that happens in SAP, you'll all be familiar with the relationship map. You'll see that when that AP invoice gets posted, because it comes through the DI API, it maintains the document relationship with the source document of purchase order, goods receipt, PO. So now we have a closed purchase order, a closed GRPO, and an open AP invoice. Okay, exactly the same would apply on the ABC consulting one, but this time there won't be a GRPO, so we'll have a purchase order and we'll have a purchase invoice attached. So has anybody got any questions around the AP invoice processing? I mean, there's a couple of things to note. When it comes to processing invoices where there is no purchase order, one of the big bugbears with SAP Business One is that it does take a fair amount of time to process a transaction. If it's got lots of lines, it takes a lot of time to process those transactions. As an example, we put an O2 invoice through this recently, and it extracted all 347 lines, and it coded every single one to the right GL account code. So it just went, right, this is an O2 bill, it's telephone, and it's coded them all to the right GL codes. To do that manually would be extremely difficult. It's a bad example with an O2 bill because it picked up the same GL code for everything because they're all phone calls. But if you had multiple line invoices with different GL codes on each line, this would dramatically reduce the amount of time it takes to process them. So any questions on what you've seen so far on that? I'm trying to skip through things relatively quickly because obviously we don't want to spend all day looking at this for you. But can you see that that would streamline your purchasing process? So as I said earlier, the other thing we've done is flip this into doing sales orders. So Andrew's got a sales order here from a company called Smiths, or a purchase order from Smiths coming into our company as a sales order. If he sends that document, it's again going to a dedicated email address for sales orders. That comes in as a PDF document. We can run the OCR scan, and in the top left hand corner there you'll see under pending tasks we've got 1 failed PI, or 6 failed PI, sorry. But when this comes in, you'll see that we'll have sales orders. So there's a log in the background that tells you what's happening. What it will do with that document, just perhaps open the PDF document. There you go, it's created it now. So that's created a sales order in iDocuments, and in exactly the same way you could process the purchase invoice. We've got an almost identical screen that Andrew can go into, and it will present the PDF document that came from the customer. It will present all of the lines from that customer, and you'll see here on this particular order the customer has provided us with our item codes. They could provide us with their own item codes. They could provide us with no item code at all, and we could code it in exactly the same way we did with the purchase invoice. But if you use business partner codes in SAP Business One, we can read that table as well and just translate their code to your code to extract the right item code. But that's created a 3-line sales order. And from here, in exactly the same way you could with the invoice, Andrew can submit that to go into a workflow. So we can have a workflow for a sales order that says it gets approved before it hits SAP, or you can give the user a self-approval limit that says anything up to this amount, if the user hits approve or submit, it will go into SAP directly without needing to be approved because the user's got self-approval. We're seeing a huge increase in demand for that functionality. One of the clients we spoke to recently processes sales orders with multiple lines. By their own estimation, it takes something like 15 minutes to process a sales order in SAP Business One. They do 600 orders a month, not a huge volume, but even at 600 orders a month, they've calculated that's costing them 150 hours a month in processing time just to get the sales orders into the system. By automating it, they've effectively freed up one person who the head of sales has determined will move directly into business development to make life easier and grow their business. So any questions around what we can do with the sales order side? It's obviously a bit easier than the AP invoice side. It's just the order coming in, being converted and processed into SAP. But any questions on that side? Okay, then finally, since time allows, we have a very capable expenses function for iDocuments that sits on top of SAP Business One. Most of this is done through the mobile, but Andrew can log on to his mobile. You can see here he can create an expense. When he creates that expense, he can select a group. The group again will determine what he can claim, where he can claim it from. We can drive an expenses policy, but as Andrew steps through on the screen here, putting that expense on, you'll see you can pick the description, enter the purpose. All of this depends on the expense type that you've selected. So if it's an overnight stay in a hotel, it will ask you for the number of nights. You can take a picture of the receipt. Once you've captured the picture of the receipt, that will be stored against the document in iDocuments, and again, it will post down to SAP. But if Andrew selects a different type here, mileage, you'll see that you can plot the route using Google Maps. So you can put a start point and an end point. You can add in any passenger details if you've got multiple people in your car. I never knew that if you've got a passenger, you can claim an extra 5 pence a mile. If I had done, I would have bought 4 cardboard cutouts and a couple of tailor's dummies for my car. But you can add all of that sort of information in. That will then create the expense claim. That expense claim then gets synchronized back into SAP, into iDocuments. The user can further edit the claim in iDocuments and perhaps add transactions that they haven't captured on their mobile phone. So things like a mobile phone bill, any subscriptions, and it can then be submitted, go through the usual approval process and post into SAP. Couple of things to mention with expenses. We have the standard expense process you've seen there. We can also do expense claims on a company credit card. So the user can capture the image of the receipt on their mobile phone when they spend the money on their credit card. But all of that will flow through into a claim that can get processed. And those claims ultimately post to SAP, and the receipts are stored against each line, either on the journal in the case of a credit card expense, or the purchase invoice in the case of a personal expense reclaim. Absolute time saver for anybody in finance. Again, our user base will testify to the fact that it's an easy to use application. It means they're capturing their expenses as they go, rather than capturing expenses as most people do at the end of the month. And you know, in some cases, people do their expenses sort of once every 2 or 3 months as opposed to once a month. But one of the great things with this is if Andrew just goes back to the iDocuments expenses and looks at view all expenses, from a finance point of view, I always found in finance my biggest challenge was what's my liability on expenses. As from here, Andrew can look at all the expenses and just look at draft expenses, so he can filter the statuses to draft using the smart search, and I can see there all of my draft expense claims that are currently in the system waiting to be submitted. That gives me a liability I can work with, and you can also look at everything that's been submitted but not yet approved. So if we select the option for submitted, it will show you what's been submitted but not yet approved, and you can see again what your liability is on that front. So gives you a little bit more control over your cash flow, understanding what your liabilities are in terms of expenses not yet approved, expenses not yet submitted. It also, through the purchasing side, you get very similar view of your purchase invoices. What have we got that hasn't yet been approved, and where is everything in the process in terms of approving invoices. So in very quick time, I know Alan said that he wanted to set this up for about 40 minutes. The idea was we'd get finished by just after 11:30 so that we can take any questions.
Do you want to just talk, Duncan, for a minute about the smart search?
Oh, sorry, yeah, go on. Show everybody the new feature I've forgotten we've got called Smart Search, Andrew. That's the one everybody loves. Go on.
So the smart search, basically on the left hand side there's various search and filters, and this can be, I've just put some standard ones here, but you can change these, which usual things like date ranges, captured from business partners, etc. But I can also scan it, search on any document in the system. We've got lots of different types in here: expenses, orders related to sales, etc. And you can search for specific words. So if I say I can search for a particular word, and it will find you all of the documents with those words on, and it will tell you which pages they're related on. So I can see that that is on page 3, that word. I can search for multiple words as well. So I say search for several words, and then it will bring me up all of the documents with those. So it was basically scanning all of the documents and then showing you what pages those words are found on, and you can do multiple search and filters, and then obviously download these images. So it's a document archive facility which you can do any sort of search for that functionality you wish, and you can add whatever fields you wish to search for on the left hand side here.
It's the latest addition to the iDocuments suite, but it does mean that any document you've put through the OCR process can be searched. And Andrew's first example there of Canada is a really good one, in that whilst Canada was appearing on the terms and conditions of those documents, it wasn't actually related to the invoice itself. Just search for Canada again, Andrew, and bring up that example of where it appears in the T's and C's on those Molson Coors documents. So you'll see that it actually appears on page 3. So the invoice itself doesn't make any reference to Canada, but the whole document has gone through the OCR engine, so it can find those transactions or those documents that make reference to that word. Okay. Any questions? Anything you'd love to see that you haven't seen, or is everybody looking at it thinking, wow, that's just going to make our lives so much easier, we need to get back to Alan and get this sorted out ASAP?
Did you say there was a customer portal or supplier portal where they can place orders through?
There is. Andrew, do you want to bring up the portal? So the portal provides 2 sets of functionality. In the first instance, the portal allows your customers to log on and view catalogues and place orders, so that the catalogue that a customer views can be specific to the customer. You know, if you've got a wide range of products and customers only buy certain products, you can give those customers a specific catalogue that they buy from. And just with any sort of B2B web shop type environment, they can click on those items, they can add a quantity, and they can purchase those items from their catalogue. You can then do exactly the same functionality to create purchase orders, where you can publish a catalogue internally and your staff can buy from a particular catalogue, which gives you control over what your staff buy and where they buy it from, and they don't need to have any consideration for anything other than what they're buying. So obviously, with the current lockdown, our internal catalogue is based on my favourite products, and I can go onto my internal catalogue and buy packs of beer. So this example was actually done for one of our clients who are a major brewer up in Scotland. Their sites buy product internally using the catalogue. It's also used by Wren Kitchens, for example, where their 90-odd retail outlets buy products using the catalogue. And they don't have to worry about what they're buying. They just buy tea, coffee, milk, sugar, stationery, etc. And it means they're all buying exactly the same product. They'll buy the same coffee, the same printer paper, the same printer ink, etc. So it's just a way of standardizing and to some extent rationalizing what you're buying, where you're buying it from.
So if the customer amended details, like the delivery details on the screen before, then would that amend the business partner master data?
Yeah, sorry, there's 2 ways that this can be set up. One, we can select delivery addresses from the business partner master data, or 2, you can allow the users to add their own delivery addresses. Now, you don't have to have that turned on. Now, if you do, it just means they can add their own delivery addresses, but that won't affect the business partner master data. So we pull it from there initially, but we allow them to do different delivery addresses if you want.
Okay. And
Okay.
obviously you can send documents direct to a certain email address, but can SAP push documents onto iDocuments for a customer to access, so like statements, invoices, delivery notes?
At present, we're only synchronizing the GRPO and the purchase order into SAP. If you wanted to synchronize the delivery note back to iDocuments on the sales side, so if you wanted to synchronize the delivery note back to iDocuments so that the user could have access to that delivery note, I'm not sure if it's been done or if it's in process. Has Anthony said anything to you, Andrew, about having those delivery notes coming back into the catalogue?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's possible. That's no problem.
Yeah. So they'll be able to log into the catalogue, or log into the portal. I should stop calling it catalogue. They should be able to log into the portal and see their documents, including, you know, their orders, where their orders are at, their delivery notes, and copies of their delivery notes, and ultimately their invoice as well.
So I know I keep asking loads of questions.
That's all right.
So
feel free.
If a customer,
That's a good thing.
So if a customer has done a sales order through iDocuments, can it see the progress of the order? So can it see if it's, say, gone down to picking, or if it's at delivery stage?
I don't know about gone down to picking. They would certainly know. First up, they'd know that the order's been approved. One of the things we'd look to do for anybody on the sales side is when a sales order is approved in iDocuments and posted to SAP, whether that's through an approval workflow or automatic approval with an approval limit on the user, I would suggest we look at sending a sales order confirmation back to the supplier. I don't want to get into the legal wrangling of whether a sales order acknowledgement trumps a purchase order in terms of legal standing, but it's always good to go back to the customer and say, I've received your order, I've processed your order, and it's been processed under our T's and C's. Then the customer knows it's approved. It will show as approved in the portal. When it posts to SAP, they would then see that a delivery note has been raised, so they'd know it's being delivered. There isn't a tracking function at this point in time, but it wouldn't be difficult to include any connections to your delivery service to get a tracking function to whoever you use as your, you know, whether it's UPS or TNT, etc. We can always connect up to their side to get that kind of information, but it depends what you want to see. The thing with sales is it's quite difficult to have a solution that's a one size fits all. Most people have got specific requirements they want to see in a portal. The idea with iDocuments is it's very, very configurable. We've got pretty much all of the bases covered. Tell us what you want, and if it's not there, as Alan will testify, if it's not there, we'll certainly look to add it in, and it's never an expensive process of adding in this functionality because it's just synchronizing to the data that's in SAP and changing the status. Any other questions? Anybody else got any questions they want to ask? Anything you'd like to see that we haven't touched on?
If there's no further questions, this has been recorded and we will send you a copy of this afterwards, so you've got it for record. Are there any further questions before we finish? No, that's a no then. Okay, well, thanks very much for everybody for attending. As I say, a video of this will be sent to all of you afterwards. What I really like personally with the iDocument solution is that it's a solution that can help generate an ROI very quickly just by itself. I've worked with software for years, and many people have always tried to generate a return on investment study. Can't always do it very easily. This is probably the easiest solution I've ever come across that can justify itself very quickly. So by all means, any questions after today or any further information you need, please get in touch with me. I'll be very happy to help you with Duncan's support.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks everybody for attending. Thank you, Andrew, for your efforts.
Everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye.